Okay, so we recovered from our power outage. We did have to go into the ESXi host and rescan storage. I had to do it twice on ESX2 for some reason before it finally revealed the access to the virtual machines. You may at this time start up your Windows systems. Hopefully everybody got their Windows installed. And we're going to look at some tasks for Windows. We did most. Use the refresh, or as I said, you go to your ESXi host and rescan storage. If you're on a different group than one, which yeah, you are. So. So you'll start your Windows 2016 server virtual machine up. I'll pause recording until everybody gets theirs going. Okay, so what I wanted to point out is VMware Tools has to be installed onto the system. I don't know if Bethany's installed on hers or not. So she's saying no. To install VMware Tools, there's several different methods to install it. One method, though, before you install VMware Tools is verify the settings. So if you want to right-click your virtual machine and go to settings, and you go to VM options, and you open up general options, you'll see that Windows is selected and Microsoft Windows Server 64-bit is selected. So that has to match before you can install VMware Tools. If you accidentally installed Linux and you had a Windows guest OS picked, then VMware Tools wouldn't install, or vice versa. So you can go ahead and close that down. That was just verifying. That'd be one possible step. A couple of other ways: you can right-click the virtual machine and tell it to install VMware Tools. However, I prefer to use the remote console. So go ahead and bring the remote console back up. So within remote console, this is my preferred method, is to go to the VMRC. We go down to Manage, and you click on Install VMware Tools. That will put it into the CD-ROM. And depending on the operating system, you might have to access the file manager to access the CD-ROM on the system. So I don't see VMware Tools auto starting. Well, it popped up and says, hey, there's VMware Tools in the CD. Go ahead and click that, and we want to run the setup 64. So most of the Linux distros now have VMware Tools coming with the distro. Linux is typically a little more complicated. They do have a shell script that you can run from the command prompt from an attached CD to install. Windows, you just have to access the CD, DVD drive in your system and run the setup program. The setup's pretty simple. You just next through with typical settings. So there's nothing major to click or do to get the installation done. Once VMware Tools is installed, you can use the Lifecycle Manager, or you can even just use the Summary tab of the virtual machine and tell it to upgrade and do an automated upgrade. So there's no clicking anymore. VMware will inject the new version because VMware Tools is already into the system, they can communicate with each other and run the upgrade without user interaction most of the time. Now, there's always registry tweaks and custom settings people do with Windows that could cause some issues where you may have to do a manual uninstall and reinstall of VMware Tools. So it says you must restart. So sure, go ahead and restart. The mouse did seem to work okay with these later versions of operating systems, but you get some of the Windows machines, the mouse is so choppy you can't use it. You actually have to use your tab and Windows keyboard shortcuts like Windows E to bring File Explorer up because the mouse is so jerky on the screen until you get VMware Tools installed. Graphics, 3D graphics and stuff are also quite slow until you get the tools installed. So it installs new graphics drivers, mouse drivers. It installs the ballooning driver, the VMM CTL driver. It was on one of your quizzes. And as you note, there's always the wrong time zone unless you're in California, Oregon, Washington area. You normally always have the wrong time zone on your system. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording and let everybody finish the VMware Tools installation. Then we're going to do another a repeat of one of the labs for the hard disk. And then we're also going to look at Performance Monitor. So I'm going to resume the recording. The next part I wanted to go over is the ability to increase the hard disk size. We did this on Linux, and it did take quite a bit of work to get it expanded out. With Windows, it's easier to do. You can go over and right-click your virtual machine and edit settings. And what we had done last time, we increased the size by 2 gigabytes. So this one, you should be able to notice it's available to resize. Everybody should be at 30 gig. You just increase it to 32 gig. And go ahead and hit OK. And the task, recent tasks down there were showed that the virtual machine was reconfigured. Now go back into Windows virtual machine. Once you have the size expanded, if you open up your File Explorer window, like Windows E, or click the File Explorer icon, and you click on this PC, you'll see that your C drive is still right at 30 gigabytes. So just like Linux still showed us when we expanded the drive, the original size, and we had to go in and resize it. So here in Windows, you can go ahead and launch Server Manager. Or actually right-click the Start menu. See if you have disk management. So we do have disk management. It can be found in Windows 10. I know under Administrative Tools. It can also be found in Server Manager under the Tools menu. And some of the systems by right-clicking the Start menu, go into Disk Management. Now these later versions of Windows 10 that's coming out, I believe this spring, and maybe the one in the fall, I don't know, they're redesigning the disk management tool. I'm not sure that I like the looks of the screenshots of it that I've seen. This tool is very well known and useful. Looking at disk 0, that is the disk that we expanded. And we see we have our EFI boot partition and stuff on there, some recovery partition that Windows automatically does. They have no drive letters. They're hidden from you unless you look at it through a utility like this. But the main drives is disk 0. It's basic. It's 29 gig in size. So we don't see that anything has changed. So Bethany will go ahead and maximize that window. So go to Action menu, and there's Rescan Disk on a Windows machine. So when you rescan the disk, what happened? Did something change? It should look like Bethany's here, where they went from 29 up to 31.98, basically 32 gig in size. I want the C drive to be expanded into the space right beside it. So you can right click on C drive and you can extend the volume. Run through the wizard. It's already auto selected, and just basically finish. So yes, that process was easier. However, if you got into the situation where you had a C drive and another partition called D or E, if you remember our LAN class, our server 3 was our file server. So we had a C drive for the system, and then we had a, I think it was E drive volume that we stuck out there that we did our shares and stuff on, so we could separate out the data volume from the operating system volume. So there's lots of servers out there that's set up like that. If you needed to expand the C drive out on server 3, remember from our LAN class, if that was the scenario here, we would not have been able to do it as easily as we did with this, because that free space was right beside C drive. So I was able to just extend the end of the partition out to the end of the drive. So if one of the partitions in the middle need to be expanded out, you would have to do what we did in the Linux distro. You would need to boot up off of a partition magic, server magic, or the parted magic, like we did with Linux. The same tool would work on Windows machines. You'd have to make sure Windows was safely shut down, not powered off, but a safe shutdown, so everything is marked clean. We could use the same tool to move the partitions. You know, they had the little blocks and you could just grab them and slide them over and tell it to move, and it would move the data in the whole partition. I believe it was Andrew Talon and I think one other actually moved their partition instead of expanding it out, and then they had to move it back and then grow it. But you need a tool like that. So yes, this was super simple. If it's one partition and the when you add new space, if that new space is right beside the partition, you can expand it really easily. But anything other than that, you would need to boot up into a G-parted and do some partitioning, moving, and resizing with that with an advanced tool. Okay, I'm going to pause and ask for any questions. Okay, other piece of information I wanted to go over is we talked about monitoring the system, and we wanted to look at some performance charts and stuff. So go ahead and close out a disk management and this PC. And let's start with launching just Task Manager. So right click your start menu and launch Task Manager. And go and expand out to more details in the bottom left. So Task Manager shows us tasks that are running the CPU memory utilization. If we click on the Performance tab, we will see our CPU, memory, Ethernet utilization, our chart here. This will be for our, not the physical CPU, although we do look up there and we do see the Xeon E5 2630L 2.4 gigahertz. So it is seeing past virtualization. There's no emulation here. The Windows is seeing the actual CPU that's inside the ESXi host. But we don't see that we have the 6 cores in there. We're only seeing 1 socket and 2 virtual processors attached. So that's how we defined for it to run. But the tool I wanted to bring you into awareness, there's an open resource monitor. Actually, that should be, I don't think that's the tool. I think we want to look Performance Monitor. Go ahead and click on the search at the bottom, the Cortana search area bar, and do Performance Monitor as your search. So launch the Performance Monitor. So this is what you should see when you bring up Performance Monitor. And this tool has some more advanced metrics that you can look at. You click on the actual Performance Monitor on the left side. So this shows us a chart of the processor time. You can use the green plus to add other metrics to look at. So go ahead and click the green plus. And I'm going to pause here just for a second so we can scroll and find what we want to look at. But we're going to scroll here on the left side and find some stuff. In the list here of available counters, VMware Tools installed drivers perfmon.dll was expanded. And here we see we have VM memory and we have VM processor. So if you hit the arrow beside VM processor, you can see processor time, the effective VM speed, the host processor speed in megahertz, the limits, the reservations, and shares. Go ahead and click on the percent processor time and click on add. Go ahead and click on the limit in megahertz and click add. And then go ahead and click on the other two, effective VM speed and the host processor speed. Go ahead and add those. And then hit OK. So as we're looking down at the bottom, we can look to see if there's any difference between the processor time and the VM processor time. So then click between the two. And you can see there's the minimum, maximum, average, last reading and stuff. So the average is 3.6. What's the top one? So it's a little bit different. So the VM processor state versus the physical processor state is showing some differences. If you click on the host processor speed at the very bottom, The yellow line is kind of hard to see, but it shows the host processor speed at basically at 2.4 gigahertz. You click at the effective VM speed. So we're effectively running at 92 megahertz out of the total capacity of 2.4. And you can click on the limit and see that, what is that limit? 4 billion gigahertz. Basically, it's unlimited. So if we want to see this change, let's set a limit on our servers. Let's go ahead and right click your host, not your host, right click your virtual machine and go to settings. We'll expand out the CPU and we're going to set a limit. So we did this before, but right now we're set at unlimited. If you just type in 200, and then click OK at the bottom or save, that will set a limit on the processor. Now, if we go back into Performance Monitor, we should now see, we may have to click off of the limit and click back on it. Nope, there it is. Yeah, there's the last. It did update. The average is going to count down as it's dividing over a 5-10 minute time frame because we just changed it. So we're getting some other peaks and stuff in here. So I'm showing you this. If you rent out server space and they are being hosted by a VMware component, you can check Performance Monitor, see, look at the physical server's max capacity. Like again, if you click on host processor speed at the bottom, you'll see that, yeah, we got 2.4 gigahertz. And then if you check out your limit, you can actually determine if the company is limiting your speed. And then you can compare the processor time, the two processors' times to kind of determine if there's some contention going on. So monitoring is boring. It's a boring section in the chapter, but it's extremely important. And it can also spot things that, are you actually getting what you're paying for? Or are they lying to you? The Linux top command even has some stuff that VMware Tools adds into that. You'd have to research in Linux how that you can view this similar information. Okay, well, I'm going to give y'all about 10 minutes just a free look around, and then we'll go ahead and do the end of the year final cleanup of these systems, because we won't need anything for the final. It's a canvas test, but do stay logged in, do play around, because we do need to run and have a cleanup at the end. Okay, so probably Sean can't do any labs because we're probably going to clean his stuff up too. We're going to go ahead and do the lab cleanup and get ready for the fall semester. So as far as lab cleanup goes, go ahead and power off your virtual machines that you've got running. You don't have to do a shutdown. You can just do a hard power off on them. And once they're powered off, you go ahead and right click and delete from disk. Don't remove from inventory, but delete from disk and get rid of your virtual machines. And if somebody is not here, go ahead and delete their virtual machines too. Yes. Well, I think McGuire's here. Maybe. Was he here? Yeah, go ahead and do his. I don't see him logged in.
He is like a village council. There's only one fact. So he might feel like, you know, you so we delete all virtual machines. All.
They're already deleted.
So don't delete these.
Those aren't. Those are appliance machine. They're part of Hyper-V. With all the virtual machines deleted, the next thing I want you to do is, I guess some of you have systems in standby mode. Go and put the servers into maintenance mode. And if they're in standby, you won't be able to put them in maintenance mode. Once they're in stand or maintenance mode, go ahead and drag them back out of the cluster and drag them back up under lab servers folder if you have lab servers. If not, just drag them up to the ICM data center. And as you notice, as they're being dragged out, they'll be tabbed over. So they'll be directly under they'll be on the same level. So once they're both on the same level as the cluster, what we're going to do that disconnects the cluster services, DRS, high availability and stuff from those virtual machines. Why don't you go ahead and right click and delete the cluster once all of them have been dragged out. I don't know if the standby ones can be dragged out. See if they can be dragged out. Okay, so those in standby mode, you'll have to start them up. Once they're started, just go to power and power on. So several groups have one or two that are in standby mode. Go ahead and delete the labs well, no, that doesn't really matter. Yeah, go ahead and once you got the cluster deleted, so if you're at this point, I'm gonna check some stuff out first. Okay, yeah, go ahead and right click on these since they're group one has the cluster completely gone. Go and right click on them and tell them to remove from inventory.
I can't power on my servers.
I'm looking at your task bar down there, and it actually says they're exiting standby mode. So admin 8A, is that you? Who's admin 8A? Whoever 8A was able to successfully exit standby mode. So it will take them a good 5 minutes for it to boot up and for them to communicate. As soon as they come up, we'll try to catch them and put them into maintenance mode. So you can drag them out of the cluster. So who's removing from inventory on the servers?
Operation failed.
Okay, so operation is part of a distributed switch. All right.
Keep saying the resources used.
Yeah, that's because of the distributed switch. So you have to remove host. I'll let y'all figure that out. On the distributed switch side, if you add and manage, you can remove host from the distributed switch.
Yes. Settings.
Cool. Okay, so Mr. Wortham, there, your ESX7 is exit standby. So make sure you right click on it, put it into, yep. Now drag it out of there and cool. 8 should be there pretty soon. So who's working on removing each host from the distributed switch? Yeah, you're add managing hosts and you're removing them. It should be fairly straightforward process.
Says there's no host selected. Alright, so there's no host selected.
Should be able to click and remove. We gotta select which hosts that are attached to remove.
It's like both of them?
Does.
Yep. So, Mr. Wortham, there, right click the DS switch section and you go to add and manage host. And then you click remove host radio button. And when you go next, you have to add the host that you want to remove, which is all of them. And then you just next and finish, and it will disconnect those. Well, okay, it functioned correctly.
And then remove the ESXIs from inventory.
Yeah, now you can try to remove the ESXi host once they're removed from the distributed switch.
Since last one. Which I was going to first the range was.
Okay, so those hosts are removed. So see, VC1 is all cleaned up and gone. The next process is, I don't want to leave those servers just running. The fans and everything will wear out just running over the summer doing nothing. So the next step is,
We need to remove the folders that we made.
now they're inside the database of the vCenter server inside Postgres. But the ESXi host, we removed them from inventory. They were in maintenance mode. So they were told that they've been released and they're no longer being controlled by vCenter server. So it cleared all of their vCenter configurations. But we can't shut them down because, well, we removed them. But yeah, we can shut them down. So what I want you to do is go ahead and go to your ESX, each one of your ESX hosts. You should still be able to log into them as your administrator account quite easily. And you're only doing this for the, like I said, the ones that are definitely been removed already. Once you log in and it's on an ESX host that's not attached to your vCenter, go ahead and shut it down. So I'm not going to do ESX1. I figure somebody's doing ESX1. It looks like, yeah, somebody's already done the auto power off on it. So each of the hosts will need to be done. Let me see. I know group 1 looks good. Group 7 looks okay. How's group 3? Did y'all get yours deleted and starting to shut down? And let's see who all was in group 5. So it looks like group 5 has got all of their hosts removed. So ESX6 and ESX5 need to be logged into directly and shut down. So Andrew's over there. So yeah, in your title bar up here, just go to open a new tab and go to ESX 5 or 6. Yeah, your ESX5.csnt.edu. Which one are you doing, James? So as you go into ESX, so Andrew will do ESX5. I just click advanced and proceed to log in. And like I said, you can use your admin accounts, admin 5A or whatever admin account, Windows account you're using. Admin 6B down there, yeah. So CSNT /admin 6B and then pass 1, 2, 3, 4 should let you log in. And then you have the shutdown there at the top. Okay, cool. So 5 is going down. Let's check out. Did you click proceed down there, James? Should be. Click advanced and it should have a proceed at the bottom. Should be a link. Can you scroll down?
There's also.
Okay, Andrew, see if you can do that for ESX6. It's not letting. Hive will go in for some reason. I don't think that'll work. It's just going to have to be just ESX6. .cs, yeah. Not VC, it's got to be ESX 6.csnt.edu. And then just go and put .csnt.edu because it adds a whole bunch of stuff on the end of it. And it went back to VC5. Yeah, you have to type it all. You can't try to click a pre-link. And just log in the same way and shut down that one. I think you have to put the CSNT / in front of admin. Maybe not. Cool. Okay, let's do a report. Group 1. Did y'all get both the servers powered off? About group 3. Group 5, we just watched y'all power off both of your servers. Group 7. I think so. Okay, I'm going to do some cleanup on my side here. Where's my machine here? Okay, that was just my notes. Okay, so my cleanup is, I'm going to go ahead and power off these vCenter servers. And let's just do a safe shutdown of them anyway. And the IT department's donated us 2 more blade servers. So I have to look to see, I don't remember if I'm offering this in the, we're offering virtualization in the fall. Can't remember, maybe just the spring. I have to look at my schedule again, but the plan is for the next class this is offered in, we'll put the vCenter servers probably on the 2. I'll probably have a cluster set up with that, maybe a 3 server cluster ESX10, and then the other 2. So we'll have some redundancy there and deploy out the vCenter servers across 2 blades instead of packing them all onto one system. Being able to have 3 servers to spread them across will also allow us to, instead of just clicking on tiny, we can go up 1 level. It'll add in 4 CPUs and it'll boost the RAM and should make them run even faster. So, uh-oh, here they go away. All of that hard work y'all did. My good old trusty Windows XP is probably going to be there for a while. So everything you did all semester long, it's gone. Checking out these shares. Seems like there's going to be some leftover folders. So my last cleanup, I've got 2 virtual VCLSs that VMware automatically puts out there. So it looks like there's a lot of folders that are pretty wasted. So my last thing is I'm going to look at where the location of these are and then go clean up the folders that aren't needed anymore. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and I'll post this up to YouTube so everybody can see exactly the steps that we had to do. There's only, I think, 2 people that actually missed